Hello, friends and family. This is Lon Pantaleon-Esguerra, and this is Chapter 1, Part 2 of Mia.
Chapter 1, Part 2. The weeks flew by fast and Christmas morning came. It was a Sunday. Mia gladly woke up early, ran to the brightly decorated tree, and found her young cousins, who lived just next door, on their tiled living room floor opening gifts. To her left, Mia's personable 31-year-old father, Noah, was on the sofa with a gift. He had come home the night before. Noah always came home every 2, and sometimes 3 years, whenever his work schedule allowed. He was stationed in a developing town of Chestershire, 5 hours away by car from the airport of Trent City, which is another 6 hours away by plane from Worthing. He worked for an oil company as a mining engineer.
Dad.
Mia wasn't able to find any other words to say. She walked to the sofa, sat beside her father, took the gift he was holding, and rested her head on his upper arm. Noah was moved and reflected on her daughter's reaction. He wrapped his arm around her and hugged her tight.
Thanks, Dad.
Mia said softly as she held on to her unopened gift. At 4 in the afternoon that Christmas Day, following Grandma Barb's rosary prayer and an hour's cab ride into Aberdeen City, Barb, Emma, and Mia stood in front of a huge gate that armored the dainty mansion from the streets. Mia was wearing it, the detested clown dress. She looked to her side and glanced at her puffed-up sleeves that hid her skinny arms. A full chunky rounded skirt covered her bony legs.
Ding, ding, dong.
She quietly giggled while slowly bending from side to side. She imagined she was a bell ringing one Christmas morning.
Stop fidgeting.
Emma yanked at Mia's hand as they entered the place.
Dad would have laughed with me.
She wanted to tell her mom but didn't. Noah stayed home to unpack and get some rest after his long travel. Inside the foyer were men and women chatting in small groups with wine glasses in hand. The room was enormous and everything seemed so vivid and pristine. The guests were very well dressed and many of them, when they smiled and moved, were stiff as a board. They walked into the parlor and Mia was surprised to see how the other guests looked exactly like the women in Barb's fashion catalog.
Oh, the skinny lady with tall shoes and tiny eyes.
Tugging her mom's blouse, Mia excitedly asked,
Mom, why are her eyes tiny?
Hush.
Emma had her say no more.
Dad would know.
Mia thought as she looked down at her white shoes that seemed to disappear into the shiny white floor. From behind Mia, a woman's soft quivering voice announced,
Barbara, you came.
An elegant old lady with shiny curly silver hair loosely hanging on her shoulders, walked towards them and gave Barb a fair la bise. Mia gawked as they kissed cheek to cheek without even touching. It was Patricia Wellington, the very gracious host of the party, and Barb's affluent aunt vacationing from New York. She always stayed in her Aberdeen manor every Christmas to avoid New York's frigid temperature.
What a lovely dress.
Patricia complimented Mia.
Oh, okay.
Mia thought and quietly smiled back. Mia's attention swiftly shifted to a group of kids, with a couple of au pairs trailing behind them, having fun and running around. She noticed how cheerful and comfortable they were in their plain flat dresses, play clothes, and sneakers. They looked so polished yet very comfortable. Mia wanted to join them but hesitated. She was scared and felt like moving in her swollen dress would create chaos and knock down the precious porcelain collection displayed in Aunt Patricia's house.
Not fair.
She thought. On Monday morning, Mia woke up early. She knew her dad was an early riser. Even though she was sure it would only be for a few days to a week, Mia was always happy when her father was home. Noah loved spending time with Mia. They always ate together, did house chores together, walked in the wide grassy field behind their house together, and played games. Now that she had grown, Mia insisted and climbed the roof with her dad to clean the gutters. Leaves that fell from the tall trees outlining the house often clogged the ducts when it rained. Noah grabbed handfuls of dried fronds and Mia sat on her heels, far from the roof edge, and put all the leaves in a plastic bag. She didn't mind the ant bites or the cuts. All that mattered was she was spending time with her dad. Noah always found something to do. He was never idle and Mia saw that. She knew she had a hard-working dad. Tuesday afternoon, Barb had just finished her daily rosary prayer when the phone rang.
Oh, hello.
Barb loudly greeted her friend on the other end of the line. While playing in the veranda, Mia overheard some of what Barb had said.
A lot of the guests were asking whose daughter Mia was. Of course, I bragged about her. Mia has always exuded this air of culture and luxury. I'm sure she's going to marry a rich man someday.
In the veranda with Mia, Noah heard it too. He was leaning on the platform railing looking out to the streets when he picked up on what Barb said. Noah shook his head slowly from side to side, quiet and very upset. The next thing Mia heard was her dad and mom arguing in their bedroom. Mia and Noah were inseparable that week. But he had to leave for work again. Strangely, for the whole time Noah was home, Em and Lily didn't have their usual tete-a-tete. However, that Saturday morning, as soon as Noah got in the cab for the airport, they quickly resumed their important conversation.
Bye, Dad.
Mia held on to the white veranda barrier, rested her chin on the railing, and watched her dad's cab disappear. No tears to wipe this time. She turned around, saw the catalogs, and remembered.
I should have asked Dad why the women in the photos have tiny eyes.
She was quickly distracted by her little cousins who were running around behind her. Lala, Lori, and Lenny, ages 5, 4, and 3 respectively, were too young to share passions and concerns with Mia. Mia learned how to keep to herself, having no one to talk to except her father who had just left. There was Anna, but, oddly, she dropped out of sight. Most times, Mia played games by herself, ran around the yard, sang loudly whilst lying on the grass, played with twigs and pebbles, and built miniature playhouses out of rocks and stones. Once, she screamed her lungs out at her little cousins when they found and tore her mini houses down. Mia was sometimes cruel and Barb noticed that. One day, her grandma started taking her to St. John's Church every morning on school breaks, forced her to join the church choir, and made her attend Sunday school. Mia found church in the morning with Barb to be very dull. She didn't even understand why she had to be there every day in the first place. Mia had memorized Barb's tedious prayer and had questions about it. However, whenever she attempted to ask, she was told to keep silent. Once she tried asking again, Barb, instead of explaining, gave Mia a thick black Bible to read on her own. Mia tried, but she found it difficult to understand. She gave up on it. The church choir and Sunday school turned out to be fun because Mia gained friends, most of them her age. Many of them were about 3 to 4 years older. Mia found joy in singing but was very uncomfortable with the unsubtle pairing and dating happening among the young choir members. Sometimes, she felt that the consistent full weekly attendance of the teens in the choir was more about mingling with the opposite sex than singing for the church. Thelma, who was also 11 and with whom Mia got on well quickly, was most passionate about singing and had the most beautiful voice in the group. Mia was thrilled to discover that her new friend just lived a block away from her house. She found the humdrum Sunday school tolerable. She learned something and, although not thoroughly, with the other 40 children in class, the teacher answered some of her questions and helped her understand things a bit more. Thanks to Paul and Clarice too, the funny and kind fraternal twin brother and sister who lived on the opposite side of the field behind Mia's house, the class became fun for Mia. After a couple of weeks, however, when Mia's newfound friends started visiting their home, Barb quickly learned they were children of simple factory laborers. Her grandmother had always refused the idea of her granddaughter getting influenced towards anything less than her ideal standard and had Mia engaged in ballet purposely on days and times they would hang out. With school recommenced, Mia realized that Sunday choir and Sunday school, and nothing outside that, were the only times she could spend with Thelma, Clarice, and Paul. Mia held on to that. It was clear how the prayerful Barbara Moore wanted to be in charge of her granddaughter's fate.
Hi, thank you for listening to Chapter 1, Part 2 of Mia.